From the John DeVito Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Paranormal Radio with Bob Trzeciak on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network. So sit back and enjoy Paranormal Radio. And now, here is the king of Paranormal Radio, Mr. Bob Trzeciak.
Thank you, John. Thanks very much. It's always nice to be back doing the show like this once a month. Just enjoyed the daylights out of doing this. I love doing it. Everybody, now that the holidays are over with, we're into January now, so we're into those quiet couple of months there, January and February, and things are kind of sort of in hiatus there. And then that's sort of like your regrouping month. That's when you start regrouping and getting things ready for the new year and that. I've been busy, though. I've been planning some other events and some other things I've got going on and that. And actually, I've got some things kind of going through the year here. So working on that and working on some other things with some other events, non-paranormal related. And keep busy with that. And I hope everybody's doing the same thing. Just enjoy the your days that are inside now. The weather's kind of getting kind of cold. We're getting these weird days. And just enjoy your inside time and do that. And devote your time to maybe doing a little reading, a little writing, some TV, and nothing wrong with that. Just taking it easy a little bit. Okay, just to give a couple of announcements. Like I said, I do have a few events and things going on here. One that I have coming up for this Friday evening, and that will be over at the Irish Legends. That's a pub and bar, and they also serve some pretty good food there, too. And that's over on Archer Road, good old haunted Archer Road there. And that's right across from what used to be what is left of the Willowbrook Ballroom. And they're actually having a ghost tour of the building there. We're doing that, and then I will be there doing palm readings, too. And so if you've got nothing going on this Friday evening and you're looking for something different to do, it's a very neat location. They've got a lot of activity in that building and a lot of stuff going on. And they're going to be doing a tour there that will be with Justin Maynard. He's kind of sponsoring that. And actually, Goose Island Brewery, I think, is sponsoring it. But Justin will be giving the tour there, and then I will be there doing palm readings. So I'll be doing that. February 10th. Monday night, I have an event in Orland Park, and that's going to be sort of loosely through the Gathering Lighthouse, and they'll be posting that up on Meetup, and that will be some palm readings and an explanation of palm reading, like what it is, and I'll be doing readings for the patrons that show up for that, and give them a little explanation of some of the lines on here, and sort of like a little mini lesson you'll get out of that, too, and then we'll do a palm reading for everybody like that with Renee Oswald. That will be on Monday, February 10th. That's at 6:30, and the Irish Legends event, I forgot to give you the time for that, also at 6:30 in the evening. February 20th, I'm going to be at the Justice Library, and I will be talking about cemeteries, but it's really not going to be too much paranormal related with that one. That one I kind of take a little break from paranormal with it. I'm doing a program that I thought of called Black Deaths Matter. We hear so much about how Black Lives Matter every time there's a shooting or a gang activity and that kind of thing. And I thought, Black Deaths matter a lot, too. There have been many black African-American folks over the years that have contributed greatly through inventions, through civil rights, through other activities and things that they have done, business people that have all made our lives a lot better for their contribution to life in society. And I thought, this is worth mentioning. And where I live over in Alsip there, I'm surrounded by 13 cemeteries, and a couple of the cemeteries are pretty much African-American cemeteries, and we have many famous folks buried right there, just literally steps away from where I live and almost walking distance from where I'm at. So I got the idea to throw a program together about all of that. So I'll be doing that February 22nd, or February 20th, February 20th, that will be at the Justice Library, and that's at 6:30 in the evening, too, and that's a free event. Just show up for that, and we'll be doing that. March the 6th, Friday, I'm going to be at the Alsip Library, and there again, I'll be doing palm readings there, and they're also doing something a little different for a library. They're going to keep the library open on Friday night. They usually don't do that, but they will be open Friday night. They're over on Pulaski Road there in Alsip. And they're doing like a pre-Irish fest, like a St. Patrick's Fest type thing like that. They're going to have some Irish bagpipers there. I'm going to be doing palm readings there. They came to me and asked me if I said, sure, be happy to do it. So they're going to have a place set up for me there. I'll be doing that, some fortune telling and palm reading there with them. They're also going to have whiskey tasting. Interesting for a library, huh? So other activities too, all kind of Irish related, and that will be kind of an interesting event there. So those are the ones I'm going to mention. I've got other things going on too, but we're just going to go up to March there with that, and then as soon as that comes, we'll mention some more things going on here and other things too as we add them on. Also too, please stay tuned to Paranormal Radio too and listen to that. We'll be having new broadcasts, hopefully once a month. Back continuing that up again now too. We took a break in December because Mr. John DeVito had some knee surgery done on that, and so we kind of took a break. He had the surgery done we did the show in November. We took a break for December, didn't do Paranormal Radio because we wanted to give John some time to relax and recover in that. And then he called me up and he said, yep, he's fine. He bounced back. He's doing very well. The surgery was successful for him. He's not in any pain, so that's why I scheduled the show for this evening. And I'm very excited about this show, too. Somebody new to Paranormal Radio, Mr. Charles Williams. Charles, I can also call him Chuck. He gave me the permission. I like to ask people what they like. You want me to call you Mr. Williams, Charles, Chuck, whatever you want me to call you. That's how I'll address you, whatever you feel comfortable with. So Chuck Williams, and he's with the Paranormal Research Team, the Ghost Research Society. I think is that what they were just called, Ghost Research Society, or is there anything else to it? Just Ghost Research Society? Mm-hmm. He's with them, so he does a lot of paranormal investigating work with them. And then a field of expertise for him, something that he likes a lot, is the Hagenbeck and Wallace circus train wreck, which happened... Well, I won't give you the dates and everything. He'll do all that, but it was June 2nd, 1918. He'll give you all the details about that. And Chuck also put out a DVD set, which he was very generously brought one for me this evening and gave me one. It's called The Day the Circus Didn't Come to Town. And it's all about the Hagenbach and Wallace circus train wreck. Right now, he doesn't have any place available for these for sale, but we're working on that. And at some of these events I'm doing that I just announced on here, I told him, Chuck, bring me some of these. I can take them to the events. We'll put a little sign up there, and we'll try to sell them for you, and we'll get them out there. Because I'm sure it's very well done, because I've seen some of the things he does, and he's very knowledgeable about the subject. So, Mr. Chuck Williams, thank you very much, and welcome to Paranormal Radio. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Okay, well, first let's just introduce you. What you do, paranormal, how you got into it.
Sure. My story isn't as dramatic as some people. Some people have, well, I saw this ghost when I was a kid, and that's what really got me into it. I was watching those paranormal shows right from the beginning, stuff like Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, and I'm like, that looks really interesting. So that's what got me going.
I'm glad you brought that point out, because people always say, well, I don't watch those because they're fake and they're this and that and the other, and I don't watch them, and my good reason for not watching them is I don't have cable, so I don't see them. Mm-hmm. And I said, if people do watch them and it does inspire them to, like, it just you just said that yourself, that's great. It's not a good thing. But the flip side of that coin is if people are watching those and think they're going to go out and they're going to do what they're doing, get those kind of results, you might be a little misinformed there. Mm-hmm. But so see, for you it was positive. Yeah. You took it for what it was, and that was something that inspired you. Okay, didn't mean to interrupt you there, so just continue on.
I didn't know where to go from there. Where do you find a paranormal group if you don't know nothing? So... on Ghost Hunters, they always talks about this, the TAPS team, and how they have them all over the country in different areas.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I looked up a couple. One was in Indianapolis, one Chicago. The one in Indianapolis said, well, we're not really looking for new members at this time. And the one in Chicago, I'm still waiting on a response.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
But... So I'm like, okay, well, that's a dead end.
Which one is what's the name of the Chicago one? We'll mention it on this, and just in case somebody listens to the show, they can hear it, and then they'll know you're interested. Maybe they can contact you. They'll listen to you talk on this, hopefully, and they'll say, gee, this guy knows his stuff. Let's get him on our team.
Yeah. I don't remember. That was so
Chicago
long ago.
Paranormal. I think that's what Dave Olson. I'm trying to think, because I've had a lot over the years. I've doing this show. I've had a lot of these people on here. So many of the different paranormal teams. Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. That was so long ago.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I found this group that was closer to me called Indiana Ghost Trackers in northwest Indiana. So I joined up with them, and they had some issues without going into that drama, and they kind of dissolved over time.
Okay.
And I went to one of Ursula's paranormal conferences, and Dale Kazmarek was speaking. And I was kind of impressed with his presentation, so I talked to him and joined up with his team.
Good for you. Okay, and that is the Ghost Research Society.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Good. Okay. So now, how long have you been with them, with Ghost Research?
Oh, geez, that's a darn good question. Probably at least 5 years.
Okay, so that's...
I'd have to look it up.
Well, that's good. That's a good long time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Great.
And from there, I had always wanted... I've been involved with video production in one way or another. Like we used to do the public access shows with the local cable channel. And I had always wanted to get into doing some kind of paranormal style documentaries. And at one point, the camera prices had came way down.
Oh, so that was the time to get the equipment.
That was the time to get into
Yeah.
it. And there, at another paranormal convention, Judy Huff was speaking about her spirit photograph taken at Bachelor's Grove.
Oh, yes,
And
now, you were not with the team. That was done by
No.
Ghost Research, but you weren't with them because that was 1991.
Yeah.
So you weren't with them then, yeah.
No, not at that point.
I've been unable, outside of Jude Huff and Dale Kazmarek himself, I've been unable to contact anybody else that seems to have been there in 1990. Now, of course, 1991, some years, some time has lapsed. But I've been unable to find anybody else that seems to have been there when the photo was taken. Just for
Yeah.
whatever reasons, yeah.
Yeah, Dale had given me a list when I was, let me back up. I heard Judy talking, and I told her, I said, your story would make a good little documentary. And then when I went and sat down, I said, well, why don't I do it?
There you go.
So,
Yeah.
so I approached her, I approached Dale, both of them were interested in doing it. So that brought about the first documentary, and I called it 1,000 Words because it's about her picture.
Wonderful. Yeah. Now, the picture you're referring to, just in case someone does not know, is the famous photo of the woman in white sitting on the tombstone in Bachelor's Grove Cemetery.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, so that was the very first one we did, and people are still arguing about that photo. Is it real? Is it fake?
Yes, I have to admit, over time, yeah, I've a lot of pro and con about it. Yeah.
Probably the funniest comment I heard is somebody accused Dale of dressing in drag and sitting on that tombstone.
Yeah, that's a little far-fetched. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I love Dale, but he would make a hideous woman.
But then you also have to remember now on that photo you can't make out any facial details, so so I don't know.
But yeah,
but no,
that
I don't
was-
think that's the case. I really don't.
Yeah, that was.
If there is any funny business going on with that photo, that would not be it. I don't think Mr. Kazmarek would stoop to that low and do something like that. No, not at all. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then the second one I did was with Dr. Chuck Kennedy and his Project Psi team that he works with, and he's done research on what happens to a psychic when they're doing a psychic reading.
Okay.
And that's the first part of the
Yeah.
documentary, and he found that when they're doing it, their blood sugar drops, and one thing that helps them is to drink like a Coke before you do your psychic reading, and it helps
okay.
them with that energy and stuff, so that they're not sometimes they feel wiped out after sessions
Yes.
and things like that.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that was interesting, and they also he also works with a group of psychics, and they help find missing people. And
Oh, okay. So they work like with the police and that type of thing. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
But the only problem, he started having issues with human traffickers. He started getting death threats. So
okay.
we decided not to really publicize that documentary.
Oh.
And
Death threats, how would you get now, because they're finding missing people, and then through this they can do some detective work and some forensics or whatever, and they can maybe trace it down to who actually did the murders? Is that why they were getting death threats? Because people said, no, these things are better off with you guys keeping your hands out of it and don't go looking for these bodies.
yeah, because he was starting to hit them in the pocketbook.
Okay.
And because if you're rescuing these girls from the human trafficking and
Oh,
stuff,
human trafficking, like selling them into prostitution and
Right,
that. Okay,
right.
okay. I lost something here. I thought it was with the forensics, with the missing bodies and.
well, yeah, it's a whole bunch of different things, but it was affecting some of the human traffickers, so they're the ones. He was
Now,
getting
see, that's
death
right. Maybe
threats
that's where I
from.
got lost with it. Now, how would looking for bodies that have been missing and you're trying to solve a case? One very famous one comes to mind, and I know someone who's done quite a lot of work on that, would be the Grimes sisters case. But now, how would something like a case, well, it doesn't have to be Grimes sisters, but any case of anyone missing like that, how would that tie into human trafficking? I don't get where that would,
Well,
because some of these people were being trafficked and then they're missing and now they can't find them. Is that?
yeah, that's about how
Okay.
I mean, sometimes there was a little boy who had ADHD and not mental retardation, but I'm sorry, I'm having a brain lapse here. I can't think of the other condition. But, he was mentally affected, and he had just wandered away from home.
All right, and then he's missing. They couldn't find him.
Yeah, and when the psychics did their work, they were able to direct police to this area where he was standing in front of a store just looking in the window.
Okay.
So they found him that way.
So it was a place to start. They had something to work on rather than having nothing at all.
Right.
Okay,
So
good.
it's just case by case.
And you did a documentary on this?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
And then the third one is the day the circus didn't come to town, about the Hagenbeck-Wallace train wreck.
Yeah. Yeah, that one I can imagine you getting interested in because it would be close to where because you're actually from Indiana, right?
Yep.
So you're right there. Now, how close are you to the train tracks, like there where
Oh, shoot, I probably live 10 minutes away.
Okay, so you're right there. Now, where we're at here, here we're up in Norridge. We're a little further away from it, but where I actually live and where I actually lived for 58 years in Summit, I was very close to the Woodlawn Cemetery, not too far from that. I'd be about the same thing, like 15, 20 minutes away from Woodlawn Cemetery, where the bodies are all buried there that were victims from that disaster in Woodlawn up there. Okay, so the day the circus didn't come to town. That's your field of expertise. Well, not really your field of expertise. You have a lot of different things that you like to do. Okay, what do you want? Now, first I'd like to ask you about this, because I can tell you something about that. But any kind of paranormal connection to the circus train wreck?
Well, yeah. When we started the documentary, I had 3 areas that I wanted to look at. First was the winter headquarters they had in Peru. I know they used to do paranormal investigations there.
Okay.
And
now you're talking about Hagenbeck and Wallace, the circus. Their winter headquarters used to be in Peru, Indiana.
Yeah.
For the winter, they would hole up there and stay there low level for the winter months. And then, of course, when spring and summer comes, they're on the trains and they're touring with the circus.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just like the Ringling Brothers would winter quarter in Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I approached them, and they are now the International Circus Hall of Fame.
Okay, so it's more like a museum-type place.
Exactly.
All right.
And they said, yeah, we're more focusing on the circus history right now. We kind of did that to help raise money. And, yeah, we're not doing that anymore.
They're not doing paranormal investigations?
Right.
Okay.
So I said, okay, well, that door's closed.
You should have said, well, how about if I do a documentary on that, which you've done, and I'm sure it's done. I can't wait. Actually, I can't wait to see this. I'm very excited about this because you very generously gave me a copy of your film, the day the circus the day the circus didn't come to town. And I'm sure it's done very well, knowing you being the person that you are. Why did you mention that to him? Say, well, hey, I'm doing a documentary on this, and we can sell copies of this, and some of the proceeds from this will go to benefit you guys. And
well, I did, and they did give us an interview, but. Yeah, they didn't want anything to do with the paranormal. And,
that's unusual, especially circus people being so very, very superstitious.
Yeah. Well, as the documentary progressed, we decided to make it more of a straight documentary. And when I went to some of the conventions this year, I made a special short documentary. It was maybe 20 minutes, and it had more of the haunted aspects.
Yeah, okay.
So, and then there's the crash site. And I've been there a lot, and I haven't got that much as far as paranormal. I got one EVP, and when I heard it, I'm like, wait a minute. I replayed it. I had to replay it 3 or 4 times before I believed it. It was a gruff male voice, and it said, boo. I said, boo? Never when I started this did I think I'd hear boo.
Okay, yeah.
I said, leave it to a circus performer.
If indeed it was a circus performer, right? It could have been who knows who.
Yeah,
who knows who. Yeah.
But, yeah, that's the only piece of evidence. But we, we went through the red tape and were able to do a paranormal investigation there.
Mm-hmm.
And the last place was the cemetery, Woodlawn.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
There's been rumors it's haunted.
I'll tell you a few things about it when you finish your story
Sure.
there. Yeah.
And I actually think it's more. Excuse me, sorry. I actually think it's more urban legend and things that were passed down as far as the cemetery's concerned. But I started working with the Showman's League of America, and they're sort of a union, if you will, for... I'm sorry.
Quite all right. I wish I had some water. I usually try to. I'm sorry about that. I usually get like a couple of bottles of water here for us when we're doing the show. I'm so sorry. I don't have anything for you here.
Oh, it's okay. But yeah, they're like a union, if you will, for outdoor entertainment, carnivals, circuses, everything in that ballpark.
Right.
And they're the ones that have the plot at Woodlawn Cemetery.
Right.
And they've called it Showman's Rest. Supposedly you could hear elephant noises.
I was going to talk to you about that. Okay.
And things about that. And what we actually did, we did the paranormal investigation in more of the guise of a listening experiment.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because we actually felt that the noises were coming from Brookfield Zoo, which is not that far away.
Yes, indeed. Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's like 5 minutes by car. I think it may be a mile and a half.
Yeah.
So there's a forest preserve right across the street from Brookfield Zoo. So we set up one team there, and another team of us were in the cemetery. And we got absolutely no EVPs, nothing on video except for a deer that came across.
Okay, yeah, him you could explain, yeah, or her, whatever it was, yeah.
Yeah, so, and we didn't hear any animal noises coming from Brookfield Zoo. I was hoping we'd get a lion, an elephant early in the morning, but we didn't get any noises. If you're doing a true scientific experiment, you'd be out there 3-4 weeks at a time.
Sure.
But with the budget I had, we got one night.
Yeah, well, hey, and then also too, it's very time consuming, and when this isn't your work, this isn't how you earn your livelihood. You're still earning a living, and you don't have all that time to devote to this that you'd like to. Maybe later on down the line when you retire, or if this did turn into a thing where you could earn your living doing it, then you say, yes, I have the time now. I have the luxury of time now. I can devote 3 days or 4 days or whatever it takes to this, and do a real thorough investigation. I was sort of at the advantage with the Woodlawn Cemetery and the Circus Train investigating that because I worked right at the Toys R Us, which is like right across the street from there, not too far, actually. Just you could walk right from the parking lot of Toys R Us over to that. Also to the place where Frank Nitti committed suicide there, too. Frank Nitti's ghost has been known to pop up there, too. And a lot of stories I would collect from people in the area about Woodlawn Cemetery. One was the animal noises. And I thought, well, this is an easy one to debunk because just that. You're not too far from Brookfield Zoo. And I did debunk that one without any special equipment or anything. Early, work at Toys R Us, or sometimes leaving work at an odd hour, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, something like that, when there's not a lot of car traffic there. And you could be over by Woodlawn Cemetery. And if the conditions were just right, if the wind was coming the right way, if there wasn't a lot of traffic noise, not a lot of disturbances, yeah, you could hear some animal sounds, and I could see where that might lead people to believe there might be something paranormal about it. But the only thing with that is, well, yeah, maybe you heard some animal noises, but why would you? Because no animals were killed in that wreck.
Exactly.
And there are no animals buried in there, and that's another
Right,
urban legend, too,
right.
about some elephants being buried in the cemetery, and that they're not, because no animals
Right.
were even killed in that disaster. The other thing is some people have been known to get the very, very uncanny feeling of fire in an accident and something taking place when they're there. And they've attributed that to some paranormal feelings from the circus train wreck. Some people that were even aware of the story were there, and they said they just had this uncanny feeling, and almost to the point, too, where you could even hear, crashes and things and that. And one time I did that with fire. I smelled smoke and just fire, like something, and I thought, oh, there has to be something really terrific burning. But it was like a funny smelling fire, like an oily, you know how like wood burns and something else burns, and it was the other fire smell. And I says, this is weird, almost to the point like where, you can smell it on your clothing, that type of thing like that. And then later on, I checked it out and said, were there any fires in that area? Was anything going on that day? And nothing that I could find, nothing that I had an explanation for that. So, yeah, but some people have known to feel that very uneasiness over at that cemetery. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the documentary, or no, wait, I'm sorry. There's some of the evidence I got, I presented that was in that smaller documentary at the paranormal conventions, and we were able to time it so we were there on the 100-year anniversary of the wreck.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it was a wet, rainy night, and
conditions weren't good.
Right. But the weather broke for about an hour, 2 hours, and we were able to squeeze in before the rain started again, some investigating time. And we did get some things. I don't know if it's because of the anniversary.
Possibly changing the conditions, too, the weather conditions.
The weather conditions.
Sure, that all, it all affects everything, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the circus performers, I was going down a list of the names, and to me it sounded like it was an animal noise, but my cameraman and one of the other investigators is like, no, that voice was coming right in front of you, because I was reading off a name of those who died, and you can hear here.
So he was answering to when you called the name, here, I'm here. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now you picked this up on an EVP, or you just heard it?
Yeah,
barriered.
Both.
Both ways? Oh,
yeah,
good.
Yeah, we got an EVP,
Wonderful.
and like I said, to me it sounded like an animal noise, but they said, no, that was a voice.
That's the trouble I have with a lot of the EVP recordings, is so many of them are so vague. Like 90% of them, it's just really, I don't want to say that I don't like them, I don't mistrust them. No, I think they are good, but my preference is if I had a good medium. I'm not a medium myself, but if I could work with a very good medium now, not a bad medium and not a mediocre medium, and there's a lot of people on all ends of that fence too. But if you could work with a good medium and that person is able to pick things up like that, I'd much rather do that, because they can get me names, they can get me situations, they can see things, they can feel things, and that you can't do with the electronic equipment. So much of the electronic equipment is still into ooh, ee, ooh, ah, and then once in a while you get an audible word or something, like you just said yourself. It sort of sounded like an animal noise. It sort of sounded like here, I don't know. If that's the best we've got to go on, it's a little sketchy at best. But, it's just a personal feeling about that.
Oh, yeah. We could do a whole show on EVPs and interpretation.
Oh, yeah. And then the other thing, too, now is also, too, now they found a new way to do this, is playing backwards. Well, I don't know about that. We used to do that when we were kids with records, and you get all kind of sounds that, would sound on there. So I don't know. It's a little skeptical. I mean, I just don't like to see that as the only thing we have for evidence. You've been now with Ghost Research for about 5 years, but I'm guessing, like you said, you were interested in this beforehand. In the time that you've been, investigating paranormal and that, what is the best thing you've ever found? If it was something to do with the circus train wreck, if it was something other, the best piece of evidence you've gotten so far, and you said, this is really something, this is great, this is definite proof I have now that there is something out there.
There's, video evidence is hard to come by.
Extremely, yes.
And I don't have anything really that spectacular. Two places I've hunted that I got the most evidence out of. There's a historical home in Ohio, and I forget the name of the city, but the guy who owned it used to work for the original John Deere, making the plows. And we also slept there, and we all slept in one room on the first floor. And I was beginning to doubt my sanity because I was hearing voices like all night long.
Okay, so that's good evidence. That would be very good. Okay, so that's a good one.
And the piece of video evidence I got out of there, now, there's all kind of EVPs, even on video.
Okay.
But there were reports of lights going off and on the second floor. And the caretaker also had another maintenance job, and he's up all hours of the night going to different areas. And he says, sometimes I'll pass by, and I know I turned off the lights, and they're on.
Okay, all right.
So I set up my video camera on the second floor because you don't know which lights are going to come on.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And eventually in the middle of the night, you see the lights go on-off, and then they come on and stay on. And,
so that's good, and you got that on video.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be good. Now, there's two good ones. You've got, actually three. You yourself said you were hearing all these voices almost to the point where you're saying, geez, I don't know, am I hearing this, or is it just, I'm just caught up with the atmosphere here and I'm hearing things. So, okay, you've got that. You've got recordings, good EVPs with that one too, which are saying some things. You also have an eyewitness, a credible eyewitness, that said this is happening here, and then you also have video. So I would say that's very good evidence right there.
Yeah.
I would say that's very good. Yeah.
And
but you don't know that location, or you just don't want to say that location? No, I'm just kidding.
No,
I know.
It's called Gill House.
Okay.
And it's really not that far from where the big prison is there in Ohio.
Oh yeah. Geez, now you got me thinking. Well, anyway, the Gill House, we know that.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
that's the name of that
okay.
one.
So that's good sound evidence. So that's a good, that's more than a lot of people get in a lot more years than that, Yeah.
And the other one was that serial killer near Indianapolis.
The axe murderer?
No, he was in Carmel, Indiana. It was called Fox Hollow Farm.
Okay.
And him and his wife had owned a couple of secondhand stores, and that's how they made their money. Well, he came from wealth. His dad was a doctor. But that Fox Hollow Farm is a kind of a large estate out there, and they didn't have time for family vacations. So the wife would sometimes take the kids away for the weekend and all that. And what he started doing is going into Indianapolis to the gay bars, picking up some guys, doing whatever at their house, and then killing them.
Jeez, okay.
And he would there's a big wooded area behind the house. He would throw bones out there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he would basically have a funeral pyre in his yard and then dispose of the bones that way. And
not realizing, of course, bones kind of hang around for a while. They don't burn all that well either, so they're going to have some evidence here of some remains.
Yeah, the way the wife started
putting
becoming
two and two together.
suspicious
Yeah.
is the kids were out playing in the wooded area.
Oh boy!
And the little daughter comes running out of the woods, followed by her son chasing her, and he has a skull on a stick.
That would kind of do it. That would kind of do it. Yeah, you'd get a little suspicious that, gee, let me see. This doesn't look like a plastic Halloween prop. I think we got something here. Yeah.
But yeah, that place.
What is it with serial killers with the gay men? Jeffrey Dahmer with the gay men killing him. Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee cannibal killer. John Wayne Gacy, a gay thing with gay men. What is it? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's a guilt they feel or something. I don't know.
Be.
It shouldn't. I don't know.
But yeah, I got like 500 EVPs out of that place, both on video and audio. All varying degrees. But I had one that touched me so much. They had a person who rented a room on the second floor, and he had some paranormal things happening. Knocks on his door. The door blew open one night.
Okay.
And the wife had saw a guy with like khaki pants and a red shirt disappearing into the woods. And
possibly one of the victims.
We were on the walkthrough, and we went around by the garage, which there used to not be a garage in that area. And I got the EVP out of there, and it sounded like somebody who was scared for their life. It was saying, "Please let me in. Won't you just please let me in?"
Wow. Okay.
And
And it was that clear too, just like that.
Yeah.
Please let me in. Please let me in. That's very good. Now that's good, because like you say, most of the EVPs are not that clear and not that audible. You really can't, Yeah.
Yeah. It sounded like, and it affected me.
I'm sure it would. Yeah.
That's been the only EVP that really affected me. And I called Dale up right away, and I'm like, "You got to hear this one." And but yeah, that was probably the best piece of evidence I got as far as audio. Like I said, video, the lights going on and off, but
video and photos are a little tougher to come by.
Yeah,
a little tougher. You'll get 90% more audio than you will get photography or video. And even like you say, what you do get, 90% of the 90 that you get is a little sketchy at best. So it's a little hard to come by good, tangible evidence. But those sound like some good ones right there. Yeah, okay. Good, okay. Well, then you've gotten some stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the spirits are receptive to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to bring up, the next documentary I'm working on is on Diana of the Dunes. For those unfamiliar with the story, it starts about 1916. This guy owns a little general store, and I picture something like Sam Drucker's off of Green Acres. And all these fishermen and hunters are coming in wanting to buy binoculars. And finally he stops them and he's like, "Listen, why are all you guys wanting binoculars all of a sudden?" And the guy says, "Well, we don't know if we're going crazy, if we're seeing things, but we're seeing a nude woman swimming in Lake Michigan." Now this is, sort of Victorian times, and women weren't going out there by themselves, much less swimming nude.
Yeah, 1916. No.
So
yeah.
Eventually the wives hear about this. They're like, why are you guys wanting to see nude women swimming in the lake?
They have to ask that question.
So eventually a Chicago reporter goes out there and actually tracks this woman down. And, you might think, okay, it's like a crazy woman or what's going on, but she's very well spoken. And he comes to find out she came from Chicago. She went to the University of Chicago, graduated Phi Beta Kappa, and now here she is living in the dunes like a hermit.
And swimming nude.
Yeah.
So she was a real person. She's not a ghost.
Very real person.
Okay.
Now, there are some ghost stories, and it would take a while. Some people say they still see her swimming in the lake.
Okay, yeah.
People have seen her at the state park and gotten scared. But yeah, that's the newest documentary we're working on right now.
Okay, good. Something new, something original too, something that's not been done before.
Right.
Yeah. So good for you. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story, and I'm actually surprised nobody has done one so far.
Maybe you shouldn't even have said this, because maybe now some people will start jumping up on this and, and try to beat you to the punch, Well, you heard it here first, folks, and it's Charles Williams doing this. Chuck Williams doing it first. So anybody else is a imitator. It's always nice to come up with something original like that and then have it stolen by someone else.
Right.
I'm all for sharing information. I am. I'm all for sharing it and that. But some people are just out and out plain just take your stuff and use it, for themselves, and you get no credit for it at all. And that's just not right either. That's not good. That's not a good way to do it. Maybe that's why there's so much, animosity in the paranormal field, with so many groups being so protective of this and so many, and, all that kind of thing that goes on, all the little paradramas, so to speak. Circus train wreck. Anything else you want to mention about that? Any facts we may not know about it, since you've done a lot of heavy research into it?
Yeah, when I do a project, I like to do things to give back. And one of the ideas we had, I was working with the Gary, Indiana Historical Preservation Committee, and we were trying to get a historical marker put out there.
By the train tracks?
Or close to it.
Okay.
and we weren't able to do it. We're still looking at some other ways we may get around that and make a marker of our own. But that's one thing we were doing, and another thing I did to give back is on the 100-year anniversary, we also had a remembrance ceremony out there.
At Woodlawn Cemetery?
No, at
the train tracks where the accident happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Gary's mayor came out.
They were like, what was it, about 10 minutes away from Hammond, maybe, or so?
Probably.
Yeah, just about that, because that would have been their next show stop.
Yeah.
Which I think they missed that performance. They didn't do that performance, but everything else they did. You know, in true showbiz fashion, the show goes on, you know, so, yeah.
Yeah, and one thing people may not know, in doing that research for the historical marker, I came across a small article. The circus had came back exactly 1 year later, and they were going to play in Hammond. And somebody from the circus was interviewed, and they said, yeah, we may not know the true number of how many people passed away that night. Because, you know, it was back in the days when people would run away and join the circus.
Absolutely, sure. And they didn't use their real names.
Right.
And there were no social security numbers in 1918, so it was a little harder to trace people. People could slip through the cracks a little more easily back in the day than they can now, you know.
Yeah, and the last show they had played was Michigan City, and they picked up some guys there.
Sure, they'd pick up roustabouts and people that would just hook up with the circus and that. And they sort of had this loyalty thing to it. They kept, you know, if you wanted to keep your anonymity, you could. And a circus was a good place for it to go because you moved around a lot, and they would jump and join with the show, and then when they felt like it, they would jump back off, and away we go, you know. There's different laborers and roustabouts and different things, and of course, now you would have had the hierarchy in circus, too. You would have had your headliners and your top performers and then the lower performers and that type of thing. And then, you know, animal trainers and then ticket sellers and, you know, tent assemblers and everything else. And then finally to the point where it got to the people that would just clean up after the animals, you know. So you had a whole hierarchy in the circus, too, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you said, you know, like when you mentioned the grave sites, one guy was known by his nickname, Baldy.
Baldy, that's on the stone.
And the other guy by his job, 4-horse driver.
Yeah, yeah, whenever I bring a group through there with that, because occasionally I do little tours and things myself, and that's one spot I like to take people to. I always point those two stones out. I says, now see, he was known by a nickname, and somehow or another they did have a positive identification of his body. They knew that this was Baldy, but they didn't even know his real name, you know. And the other man they knew drove a team of 4 horses, so he was the 4-horse driver, you know, and that was on his stone. So at least he had some, you know, who he was, you know. Yeah, but it's really kind of sad. Even today when you go there and look, and it's almost endless. You see all those graves with that date on it. You know, they're all, and a couple of them have the dates a little later too. So they may have lived for a couple of days and then died after. You know, but they're real close to that June 22nd, 1918 date. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When you point things out to people, the president at the time, he was the second president. The first was Buffalo Bill Cody.
Yeah, Buffalo Bill Cody, I think, actually founded this one, Showman's Rest, and then there's one, I believe, in North Dakota, too. I think there's another one, and that's the one where he's buried. Buffalo Bill Cody himself is buried in North Dakota.
Yeah, but the second president, he was in the hospital with pneumonia at the time of this train wreck. And when he heard about it, he's like, yeah, bring whoever you need to be buried here. And he wanted to do the preparations for the burial himself.
Goodness.
So against medical advice, he got out of his sick bed, took care of all that, and he died just a few days later.
Well, now I'm thinking two things. 1918, we had a horrible flu epidemic that swept the country, the Spanish influenza, and maybe he still had a touch of that, because the Spanish flu in 1918 killed more folks than World War I did itself, casualties from the war. So that may have done it, or maybe just simply his overexerting. Was he a mortician? Did he do embalming? Is that why he was able to clean and bury the bodies? Or
Oh, no. He didn't do that stuff.
Oh.
He just made the preparations, like,
all the
you
arrangements?
bringing the bodies to there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Everything.
He did all the paperwork and all that
Right,
stuff.
right.
But still, it was a tremendous amount of work to have that many, people buried. What's the exact number? I knew this
I
stuff.
believe there's like 55 graves out there.
Yeah. Out of, what was it, 86? No, not 86 deaths. How many deaths total?
Yeah, I think it was 85, 86.
Okay, I was right there then. Okay.
But yeah, like that one article said, they may not know
You
the
really
true
don't know.
number,
Yeah,
but yeah, and some people had family. They could identify some of the
Sure.
people, so they went to wherever they needed to go.
Yeah. Not all of them were buried in Showman's
Right,
Rest. People
right.
that had nowhere else to go were there. Like you say, other people were taken and buried in private family lots and things and that kind of stuff like that. Very sad that something like that had to happen. Even though it was so long ago, 102 years now. So yeah, but nonetheless, still a very sad event. Yeah. The driver of the train survived it.
Yes.
Yeah, isn't that the strangest thing?
Yes.
Yeah, he actually survived. Yeah.
Yeah, and he walked away from the trial. It was basically a mistrial. And the prosecutor decided not to try to push it any further. And he continued to work for the railroad. However, in a lesser capacity, they put him in like the rail yard, pulling cars around. And he did that until he retired from the railroad.
It's funny, too. Back in the day, too, like in the teens, of the last century, we're saying like 1910 to 1920, it seemed to be a little easier for that to happen, too, where no one was held accountable for anything. Titanic sinks, and no one's really held accountable for that. It's just an act of God. It's an accident, et cetera, et cetera. White Star Line's not responsible. The captain is almost a hero. No one really claims it happened. It was a human error. We know that, but yet no one is accountable for it. The Eastland disaster. No one's ever held accountable for that. And all these unfortunates that die, just sort of, well, that's just the way it was. People just seem to accept it as, well, this is the way things are, and that's that. Today, if this happened, no. Somebody has to be responsible for it. Any plane that goes down, anything that happens, somebody's at the tiller to this and making this happen, so. Very different world, 100 years later, very different how things change.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the reasons we had trouble coming up with to the Indiana board with evidence as to help back up why this needed a historical plaque out there at the scene. There wasn't the transparency in companies that we have now. And yeah, there were improvements made, but the way the trial went, they put everything squarely on the engineer. So that meant the circus wasn't to blame, even though the cars were getting older. The way they had them aligned, where the sleeper cars were at the end of the train.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, all that changed, but they didn't have to prove it. They didn't have to print, hey, look, this is what we're doing to improve things.
Yeah.
So that's why it was very hard for us to come up with
So they did
evidence
lay blame on
supporting-
the engineer, but yet nonetheless he was not brought up on any criminal trial, charges. So he sort of basically walked away too. Like you
Yeah.
said, he did serve in lesser positions, but nonetheless he wasn't dismissed from the company. He didn't serve any jail time for manslaughter or any such thing.
Right.
Carelessness or neglect or whatever. Who knows? Like I say, today it would be a different story. But then kind of slipped through the cracks again. Easily, and people just sort of accepted it as this is the way it was. And that was it. Yeah. Sort of sad. But I would think that for nothing else other than just the fact that a memorial of all these people that lost their lives in this, to have a marker there, if for nothing else, I mean, just for that reason alone, Showman's Rest is pretty nice too. Now they did just not too long ago put up little plaques there telling the little story of the circus train wreck there. They didn't have that before. The elephant statues there and that, and of course everybody knew that. But I don't know how long ago it was that they did that, where they actually put the little story there about the circus train wreck.
Yeah, that was just at the 100-year mark.
Oh, okay, so that was just a couple years ago. Yeah, I know it was fairly recent, yeah.
Yeah, as part of, when I started talking to the Showman's League, they allowed me to come out there and film their 100-year ceremony. And part of that's in the documentary as well.
Woodlawn Cemetery, I must say, is very cooperative with you. Some cemeteries, as far as this type of research and anything, even though this really isn't paranormal, so some of it is paranormal loosely, but a lot of the cemeteries are not too receptive to this kind of stuff like that. But Woodlawn is very nice. They really are. I've spoken with people there. I've had people come out and approach me when I'm out there and stuff, from the cemetery. Their car pulls up at Woodlawn, and I think, oh boy, the guy's going to come and say, what are you doing out here or something. But no, they're very, open about that, and they're very cooperative with you. So they're very good about that.
Yeah, I had to go through a lot of red tape to be able to film there, but yeah, I mean, they were cooperative and helped as much as they could and got me in contact with the right people to talk to, so yeah.
Good for you, yeah. That's why I like doing research, isn't it? It's like you get a lead on something, and then you take it to the next one, and you take it to the next, and you can listen. Eventually, you hit that thing you're looking for. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you come to a dead end. If you're going to come to a dead end, I usually found it like after 2 or 3. After 2 or 3 inquiries, it kind of goes nowhere, and you run into a wall with it, and that's it. If you get past the 3rd, boy, you're pretty good. You can keep going with research and that, and it's good. The people at the Burr Oak Cemetery, too, have been very, which I didn't think they would be, because Burr Oak had, trouble with that scandal with the graves being dug and resold and all that, and everything like that. But they were very, very cooperative with me when I was researching, different grave sites and thing at Burr Oak, and very nice folks to talk with in that, too. So some cemeteries are a little more open to that than others are, some just don't want to bother with it at all.
Right,
They don't want to, get away from here. Who the heck are you, Yeah. That's how that works. Well, thank you, Mr. Williams, Mr. Charles Williams, Chuck Williams. Anything new coming up for you? You said you're working on the new documentary.
Yeah, the Diana of the Dunes.
Right.
I'm also working on a couple of other projects. We were thinking about doing a small documentary about the Gill House, which we talked about.
Right. That would be a good one, yeah.
Also, I'm going to do another small project with Dr. Chuck Kennedy. He at one point had this device called Neptune, and actually he did a really old documentary, or he was part of a documentary on Bachelor's Grove, and he took this Neptune out there, and it's a underwater listening device. And he
put it in the pond.
Yeah, put it in that little pond, and they got some EVPs out of that thing. So I talked to him. I said, how much would it cost to make one of those? And he told me, and it was real reasonable. So we're going to do a short documentary on us talking about the old project, and we're going to attempt to make a new one. So that's another project, and one other small one. I'm working with one of the cemetery tour people about their tours and the way they do them. Like they have some psychics work with them. So not only do you get history, you get the paranormal stuff and some psychic type readings. So that's going to be another little project we're working on.
Okay, good for you. So you're keeping busy too.
Yes.
Yeah. You got a lot of irons in the fire there.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Let's hopefully you get a website up or something when you do all these documentaries and you get these things all packaged nicely, like you got this Day the Circus Didn't Come, where people can buy these things and purchase these from you.
One of my friends who's a professional cameraman worked on this project, and I've been talking with him about re-editing it, because this is more the director's cut. That has everything in it I could possibly want to put it in. But we wanted to get it on like PBS, so we would have to whittle it down to about an hour. They like things that are 30 minutes or an hour.
Yeah, okay.
So
it could also be a two-parter too, though, with PBS. You could do two, Yeah.
So,
they just reran that Eastland documentary the other night. They ran that again. They had shown that a while back, and then the other night I was like flipping channels like at 1 o'clock in the morning, and there came the Eastland documentary that popped up again too. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's another possibility for the future. We're going to re-edit it and try and get it on PBS.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure, thanks
Pleasure
for having
meeting
me.
you. Oh, I'm very happy to have you here. Yeah, wonderful. Please come back again anytime you'd like to.
Anytime you need me.
Yeah,
I'll be
anytime.
here.
You're welcome to come back on anytime you would like to, sir. just a pleasure to speak with, and I hope people enjoy the show. I'm sure they will. I found it very interesting. I like that. The day that circus didn't come to town. That's did you write? You didn't write a book on this, did you?
No.
No, writing's not your thing. You're more film.
Yes.
That's what you like to. I'm working on a book. I'm working on one book on paranormal, one book on something entirely else. You know how you work on stuff, you kind of put it aside, you get back to it later. You know how that is. You sort of flip between projects, and eventually, maybe 10 years down the line, you'll have it done. You know, you know how that works.
Oh yeah.
But when you have the luxury of time, you say, when you feel like, if I feel like doing it today, no. If I want to work on something else today, or if I want to work on nothing today, that's what I'll do. So that's how that works. Thank you, sir. I guess we are going to wrap. Well, yeah, we did the hour show. We did it in the hour. Thank you very much for coming on again. Chuck, it was a pleasure meeting you, pleasure having you on here. Folks, thank you so much for listening to Paranormal. It's just an absolute joy coming and doing these shows once a month like this. I just love doing this. We will be doing a February show, just exactly. I've got a couple of folks possibly lined up as some guests for that. I don't want to make too many announcements about that yet. I'm also thinking in April possibly doing a location, because I may be doing a show on Titanic. Possibly something I'm going to do for a senior citizens group that I'm going to do. And we may be doing like a Facebook Live on that, and then that would be our February show. We did that for December. John Chikanda, who's our producer here, we didn't do a December show here in the studio because, like I said, Mr. John DeVita was recovering from his surgery. So we needed him to have some time to relax on that and not have to come down into the basement here and set up stuff at the studio. But John Chikanda did come out to my residence where I live, and I live in a senior complex, and actually in the clubhouse there we actually did a show there, a Facebook Live, and I says, and we did it really fast. He says, "Do you have any guests?" I'm like, "Guests? I just found out we were doing it. I didn't get anybody lined up for it, but we may do something like that. I'm going to talk to him and see if we can do that for April. So that may be our April show. We may be doing that like that." It's a little hard for us to go on the road. I get asked that a lot by people. They say, "Can you come and do a live broadcast here? Can you do a live broadcast at this location or at this place or that place?" And we used to do some of those. We have in the past done a few of them, but it's a little harder now. It's a little tougher now for John to do that, to get around, because he doesn't have the help he used to have doing it, and it takes a little bit of setting up and a little bit of work in that. And so we're kind of shying away from that. We're doing a lot of just the shows in studio. Okay, folks, thank you so much for listening. Like I said, we'll let you know what's going on in February. We'll announce that. This broadcast will be up probably in a day or two up on YouTube, and then also on the Windy City Network at www.windycityhometown.com. So you can listen to it in a couple of different spots there. Also on the Windy City Network, other shows we've got going on. We still have all these shows, right, John? Meet the Chicago Historians, The Dawn of Sports, Paranormal Radio, that's us. Chicago Junction, kind of an interesting show, all about railroading. Oh, that's off?
No, that's still on.
Yeah.
But Armchair Experts and the other one...
Walton Wisdom?
Yeah, they're not on anymore.
Oh, okay, so we got rid of two. We lost two shows there, but we do have Chicago Junction, Paranormal Radio, Dawn of Sports, and Meet Chicago Historians. Yep. Okay, so there's a few shows we got going on, and then also to the music and other entertainment that he's got on the Windy City Network. So www.windycityhometown.com. And I'm waiting for the X-Files music, John, to carry us out. Surprised we haven't gotten in trouble for that yet, because, well, of course, X-Files not on, but that's actually the X-Files theme. There it is. There's the X-Files music. Thank you so much for listening, folks, and have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Paranormal Radio with Bob Trzeciak from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network. Paranormal Radio was directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Monday, January the 27th, the year 2020. Until next time, friends, please be safe and thanks for listening.